Hello and welcome to another amazing podcast, Pipeline to Profitability. Today I have Matt Benton all the way from Florida, and he told me before that he used to live in California. Um, I think that's what you said. So Matt Benton is someone that I have been very following very closely for many years. We both have over 1,000 friends in common on social. We know all the same people in the industry, in the plumbing, drain, trenchless industry. And Matt is the founder of Real Time Marketing, nodig.com, Trenchless. He's got that many companies. I'm going to have to hand you over to him so he can tell you a little bit more about what he does. I haven't met anyone in the same league as Matt Benton and his companies when it comes to marketing for plumbing and drains, and that's the place that I live. So welcome to today's podcast, Matt.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks,
for joining
Alan.
me.
First off, I do want to say, man, it's a pleasure. I know we've talked for years now. We know a lot of the same people, and we're very passionate about what we do. But it's nice to come on here and have a conversation with someone who feels like a good friend. So first and foremost, thank you very much for that. I'm honored to be here. Yes, I am the CEO of Trenchless Marketing. That was my first, essentially my first foray into a digital marketing firm, and I started it, I think, legally incorporated in 2015, I believe, but I started before that a little bit. But yeah, I went out there and just learned Trenchless and absolutely mastered it, understanding it. That everyone in the world thought I did it. People would call me and ask me for advice. But Trenchless Marketing, we created more marketing, more content, essentially for the residential trenchless industry than any other company on the planet. We're very proud of that. We still do today. Our understanding of that led us into real-time marketing, which is a little more broad of a category in terms of who we represent. I did buy the Trenchless Information Center, nodig.com. That's being transformed. That's up and running, but we're going to have a new version that caters to the housewife, which will, coincidentally be free leads to the people who participate. And I got a whole plan about that. I'll talk about that with you one of these times as well, Alan. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Matt. And I know, I've got a lot of companies that I've not only worked with now, but uh, have worked with over the years that just love this space and what you're about. And like I said, I've been following you for many years now, and I think you're doing an amazing job for the industry, my friend. And I think we need more Matt Bentons in this world that can actually help our fellow plumbers and drain cleaners. Because it's not an easy industry, is it? It's a difficult industry, and getting those phone calls and marketing the business is a bit of a challenge for most contractors. So um, yeah. Um, all right. Well, I might lead you into a little bit more about what you do, Matt. And again, I wanted to thank you for joining us today.
We started creating 3D videos, content, ways that we could really, because the problem was, and my early contractor would say, Matt, I am so sick and tired of trying to explain trenchless. So we would come up with 3D videos, and these 3D videos were really hot, and they're still hot now. We still make a lot of them for everybody. We've made hundreds of them, and and that was a great way to tell the consumer what it is, how it works, and why you should choose trenchless, perhaps over trenching for environmental reasons. Or, I think one of my episodes of No Dig for a reality show, our second one, we went in South Carolina. We went under an oak tree. The lady, she wasn't allowed to cut it down. So, we were able to explain these through good content. And a lot of times these 3D videos became, my clients' best sales reps. Even when you're sleeping or you're not around, somebody goes on your site, clicks on a video, and they instantly get it. So that was a big help as well.
Fantastic. So, okay, so you're not a plumber. You talk like one because you've got so much knowledge, and
I'm
probably
embarrassed.
because you've been hanging around with plenty of plumbers. And so, Look, I'm a preacher of trenchless, and the crazy thing is there is the percentage of companies doing trenchless in the US is really small compared to, say, Sydney, where I was based. I mean, everyone's doing it. It's crazy, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but there seems to be a very, very small percentage of the market overall. And don't ask me what it is. You probably have the numbers. Um, but I mean, it's our association with some of the biggest trenchless companies, and but so why is trenchless so popular here? Well, why do you see trenchless so popular? And am I wrong about my assumption with the percentage of contractors that are doing trenchless a lot smaller than it is, say, back in Sydney, Australia?
Yeah, or even parts of Europe for that matter, you know. But in the US, well, you have to realize, Alan, I was early in the game, and I was watching some of the permaliner people in Southern California charging, 250, $280 a foot for a residential, right? Little 4 inch.
Mm,
Um, and I watched, data come in over the years. I watched the searches increase for terms like trenchless sewer repair as opposed to primary sewer repair. So there was that slow building to the masses, but it's still infinitesimal, and a lot of people still don't know about it, but it is gaining in popularity. But what the installers, some of the installers early on that I had a lot of information with, saw it as a money grab, and a lot of them just didn't. Well, whether or not they didn't get the training or the manufacturer didn't provide the right training, and they were selling machines, and those machines and the setups and trailers are expensive, and no matter who you used, and if you weren't getting the right training, when you go to invert a liner, you can be as good as anybody, but you don't know what's going to happen. you know there could be a failure, and there's a lot of failures, and a lot of those failures transcended into a negative feeling with a lot of people who were on condo associations or cities, and that led to laws. And I think there's some stuff in California that kind of an adverse situation with lining, I think, cast iron. I don't know where they're with that now, but but it is gaining more popularity. The technology is changing so fast now that I can barely keep up with it. Not just the technology, but the resins and the blue light and the instant curing. Now, as we get to the instant curing for residential, that removes a lot of liability. You remove that liability of blindly doing inversion, then you can bring more people into the game, if you will, and they may not require as much training. But the other side of that, these new machines, if you will, man, they're really expensive. So if you're going to get in the game now, you could be doing $150,000, $200,000. Just depends on how you want to have it set up. So to make that type of commitment, you're really going to have to understand the market, understand your community, understand the tools of the trade to be successful.
mm. Yeah, we were one of the early companies down in Australia. I mean, we weren't before. Say, we both know Scott from APS, and he was probably one of the first that I come across in Australia. And I'm guessing he started playing with trenchless maybe in the late '90s. The thing is, and I don't know if you can go back to the date that you first started working with trenchless companies, but I had a fella by the name of Ed O'Connell on a podcast a couple of days ago, and he was saying that he was playing around with trenchless back in, I'm sure he said back in the 80s or 90s. I'm going, oh my God, I had no idea. And I know Europe has probably been playing with it for longer. But
Yeah.
so why? I mean, it's such a great way to be able to repair a customer's drain without having to chop up the driveway or chop up the road. But it's such a great way to repair a drain if you've got the investment, if you've made the investment and got the training. And I know we've had, excuse me, we've had this conversation before I mean, when I'm bringing anyone that's not doing trenchless, I always bring them into starting to learn that they should have the drain calls to start with, and most of the trenchless is going to come from the customers that you're already serving. And rather than investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in the top of the line equipment, why not put your training wheels on and learn how to pipe patch first? Because we did pipe patching, then we invested in full inversion lining, brow liner, and I think our first truck was an investment of about $700,000. That's Australian dollars. That's like 700,000 Australian would be about 100 American, something like that. It's ridiculous at the moment, but so. And I'd love your thoughts on this for our listeners. And a lot of our listeners we've got plumbers, air conditioning technicians, but wanting to get into drain clearing, drain cleaning, trenchless. What's your recommendation? What's the steps that you recommend, Matt?
Yeah, if you're not going to get into blue light, these technologies, right? Because it's way more stable, way more predictable, right? Then I would get into clearing drains, whether you're using chains or hydrojetting, to really understand that process, what's going on in that system, how that system behaves before you jump into lining and making that big investment. Drains is the best way, drain cleaning, as you know, from a marketing standpoint, is the holy grail, essentially. Everyone contacts me. I need drain cleaning. I need drain calls. Well, we have to understand, how do we create our content in a way that resonates with the end user, typically a housewife, right? And how she's going to search from a symptomatic standpoint and not using industry vernacular, right? So a drain call could be Sally in Minnesota searching, cracked sewer pipe or smelly cast iron pipe. Those can be potential drain leads. So we have to understand that, and that goes to making your site authoritative. And that's the whole Google side of it that we probably don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But it's really important that you approach the symptomatics content from a housewife standpoint of what she's experiencing, because I can tell you, and this is going to spill over into no dig, the biggest fear a homeowner has is a sewer backup. And it's probably right up there, maybe even greater than an AC going out. A sewer backup into a house that's on a slab, there's nothing more, nothing worse than that, because you're talking, germs and everything else that you would associate with raw sewage in your home. So, I would tell everyone, if you're going after the residential market, you're probably going to want to go after, and I think it's common understanding, common knowledge, that you want to go after the housewife primarily, and
Absolutely.
how she searches.
Look, I get it. A lot of the guys, because we play in the similar space on social, where we see a lot of guys that are focusing on trenchless work, and they're very good at it. And we had a lot of those guys, a lot of those contractors, salt of the earth guys that love the technology, and they've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in technology, and they're happy just to go out and do the relining, but not worry about the drain cleaning and just chase the relining, the trenchless work. But the success come from me was to be a drain clearing company first, generate the lead via my existing customers, whether that was via my plumbing customers, my electrical customers, my air conditioning customers. They all had drains, right? So we had to attract to them to actually generate the block drain, which gave us the opportunity. And as long as we didn't F it up with the customer and kept the relationship and did a good job there, we would nearly always get the trenchless repair. But look, I probably want to touch on the fact that the reason that trenchless can be seriously profitable, if you look at it this way, is if you've got a drain that is someone's just had their bathroom remodeled and they've spent 20, 30 grand, whatever, and depends on the house. Yep. And the remodel company didn't bother to check the condition of the drains underneath, if it's a slab or, and the bathroom's and we've had plenty of calls like this. The bathroom's remodeled, and then there's a blockage because some tile grout or tile has gone down, and then
Right.
you get the plumber in. What's going on? Puts a camera down. We've got a problem, Houston. We need to chop up your floor and repair the drain that should have been checked. That does happen, and then you've got
Yes.
other situations where you've got drains underneath main roads. We've relined drains underneath some of the busiest roads in Sydney. We've relined under driveways, and the drains are 10, 15, 20 foot deep. So there's all these possibilities for trenchless, but I think the biggest opportunity is the fact that you have to wearing the risk is not much fun if the job goes south, but the job is priced according to the level of risk. Because if it does, let's say your company's got a 80% success rate or a 90% success rate, means you've got a 10% failure rate, and it does happen. The best of them do F up.
Does.
You got to wear that risk. I've had jobs that probably cost us 30K to rectify. So there's opportunity there, and it's a subject that I love, and it's always great to talk to someone that's passionate about it as well. So when it comes to marketing, I'm happy to come back to the drones. When it comes to marketing, tell us a little bit more about some of the things you're doing out there, because everyone I come in contact with wants more leads, right? So is there any information, any little giveaways you can give to our listeners about getting more calls? I mean, I'm seeing some really great videos you're doing, and I always say, look, content is king. You follow guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, but what's your thoughts on that, Matt? For the average plumber, or even if it's even if it's a HVAC contractor that's listening to us, what can they do to get more calls?
Yeah, that's, especially this year has been very brutal with the economy and everything we've seen. And this year's been tougher than most, according to my data. But it is rebounding. But I get that question all the time. Now, it's really important that a plumber and a plumbing company manages their data really well, manages their customers really well, because we can create campaigns through text messaging back to your client base and run some specials. And we've been very, very successful marketing back to your original customer list. So I always tell my clients, make sure you have a good CRM, make sure you keep track of them. And then we can come up with really fun specials for the month of whatever, and come up with some ideas that can get the phones ringing again. And we've proven that time and time again. Local service ads, which people either are the Google guaranteed, which either people love or hate. Me, I'm a by the grace of God type of guy. We got in and we created the advanced local service ads, made it a product before any other company did. And many of my contemporaries called me out. But it turns out nowadays people take my same model and now they're using it. So if you can take an LSA model, now granted, they're not all perfect leads, but we're talking about getting leads, getting the phone ringing and creating some business. You said earlier, you want to be the first guy in the door for the drain. That's what everybody wants. So if you want to be the first guy in the door with the drain, you need to have, for instance, now we're doing mailers. Like, let's say that you do a job on Main Street. We can target a 2-mile radius, and say, hey, we did a trenchless repair here in this area. If you're experiencing the same problems, call us here at this number. Market back to the clients. Get some LSA going. You have to do many of these layers correctly. There's not one panacea. There's not one way that's going to be the holy grail or the home run, but you do all these layers effectively the right way with a plan and action and good content. It will take care of what ails you the most, and that's low call volume.
Mm.
Every single time.
The next biggest thing that I hear, and it's not just Australia, everyone, and look, I'm complaining as well because when we were using Google paid ads, it's just way over the top cost wise. And I think whenever you get into a really competitive market, when everyone's chasing the drain, you're going to drive that cost of that lead up. So I would say to everyone that I work with, well, everyone that I'm working with now, you've got to find other ways to get that call. So when a customer's got the drains are gurgling and they're in a little bit of a panic, they might not necessarily remember who the last plumber was or who cleared the drain last time.
They're
But
not brand loyal.
if you're a good company, a reputable company, a continued that communication cycle, you'll be there. We used to make sure they had stickers everywhere, fridge magnets and all that. So, I mean, but there's other ways to get calls rather than the most expensive, which is probably, in my view, Google AdWords. So what are some of
And
the
you
other
know,
little things that you would recommend,
yeah.
Matt?
Yeah. And it's funny, half the time I don't even offer pay per click. And my clients are like, what? If drain calls are $1,000, it's not making any sense. If drain calls are $750, it ain't making any sense, right? So I try to steer clear of that. There's some good companies out there that do a great job. That's not what we do. Another thing that we could focus on is your Google business profile. If you can really optimize that well, right, with the right content and get on the maps and people are doing plumber near me, right? Even they'll say plumber near me. You mentioned that they're not brand loyal or they don't remember who they worked with. Then Maps is a great way to go, right? And I'm surprised. I think a lot of plumbers don't take their Google business profile seriously enough. They think it has to be pay per click and it has to be their website. Website's important. We can talk about SEO. I personally think we're the best in the game when it comes to search engine optimization. That's a long burn, a slow burn, and it's not overnight. We're talking turning it on quicker. It's got to be your Google business profile, local service ads, and your website. Those three things, well, according to Google, effectiveness, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, those three things interlink together from your primary site to your GBP to your LSA will get you out in the forefront. I'm astonished how many times plumbers or people in general don't understand how important it is to optimize your Google business profile, because that leads to maps, that leads to better rankings. And it shouldn't surprise us because how much time, money, and effort Google has put into GBP and LSA. They're there for a reason. Master it, figure it out, get the right company to do the right work, and you will reap the benefits for sure in a quicker time and at a lower cost than AdWords.
Well, Matt, I'm definitely going to be recommending anyone that I come in contact with that doesn't actually have someone that they're happy with. I'm definitely going to send them your way because marketing is everything and everything is marketing, right? And look, I don't just preach online marketing. I do. I mean, you touched on this. I'm a big advocate of really using your existing customer base in a way that no one else is doing it. And let's face it, we know what's going on in the industry, right? We've got the consolidators, we've got the the private equity. They're looking for the customer. They're looking for your customers, right?
It's gold.
They're not so much looking at your nice fancy trucks and your workshop and that, although that's important, your brand. But they're coming after those customers of yours, and I think anyone that wants to really grow their drain division really does need to look at every customer that you've ever serviced. Have they ever had a drain problem? Yes, no. If it's a yes, you need to be in front of them. If it's a no, you need to be in front of them. I say to all my clients, the ideal situation would be to get a camera down every single home that you're in, if you can find a way to do that, whether there's a problem or not. If they've had a previous problem, get the camera down the drain just to make sure everything's good. If they've never had a problem, offer an inspection. This comes at a cost, but I mean, what's the saying that my business partner Joe Cunningham always tells me is you can't fix a problem to a solution the customer doesn't know they have. And
Right.
most of the time,
Good.
I did a great podcast with Weldon Long a few weeks back where he talks about the plumber just come out to clear his drain and didn't bother to be thorough with it, and then left him with a flooded basement just before a major event was coming up because he wasn't thorough enough, you know. So, but yeah, so all right, so
Your customers are a gold mine, and
yeah,
you have to start with that, right? Because acquisition, growth through acquisition is on fire right now.
yeah.
Why is it? That's the cost per acquisition, and so there's a lot of plumbers out there, and in general that don't take building their client database serious enough,
Mm.
and they should.
Yeah, well,
That's
that's definitely an area that we're helping our clients with. Follow-up's another one. Follow-up, rehashing your existing leads. There's so much you can do that can generate calls at a pretty low cost. So
Well, let me just
on
say
that,
this real quick. I want to say this real quick. I worked with a plumber that also did lining as well, and I asked him, I was like, well, have your technicians, look around. They cleared the line, they got the service, but what was their toilet's old, outdated? What about their landscape that you can add to your database that you could possibly try to get referrals and maybe incentivize them, go back to them somehow, some way, and say, hey, look, we're doing a special on this upgraded toilet, if you will. If you can give us a referral or 5 referrals of family friends that may have drain problems, we can come in and take $100 off of it and upgrade your system for you. There's just so many different, now that's not a perfect model for everybody, but there's so many different ways to look at a solution when you're inside the person's home. And how can you get friends and family? How can you maximize all your efforts to grow your customer base?
so tell me, Matt, when you work with and I know you've got a lot of clients, and I think I said I loved your latest video, so we might.
More to come.
Oh, you're doing a few at the moment, and
Yeah.
look, when this podcast comes out, I want to make sure I put in a few links to some of the stuff you're doing. But
Very kind. Thank
for
you.
our listeners now that are maybe they're unhappy with the current company they're working with, what are some of the other areas? I mean, you've covered off some of the stuff that you do online. Do you provide advice to your clients in other areas? You're not just online, you're also suggest offline. I mean, marketing is everything, but to what degree, when you work with you and your great companies work with the client, where else do you provide value?
Mhm. Yeah, well, acquisition, selling, I'm not as well versed as some of the giants in our industry, but I have clients reach out to me and have them talk to the company that's going to buy them. Subsequently, we work with a couple acquisition companies and we handle their marketing. As soon as they buy a company, we go in and audit their marketing immediately for them as a service. Yeah, and some traditional marketing, right? But some of the basic stuff. But we're primarily digital and all things online, brand content, you know.
Very good. Right. So now, is there any particular? But I want to thank you for the value that you've given it, and I always ask all my guests, is there any special book that you might be reading at the moment that you would like to recommend to our listeners that you've had a lot of value from?
Yeah, well, the last book I read was Brené Brown, Braving the Wilderness. That was fantastic, just about obstacles in life. Because I'm a big, I'm 53 years old, and I can play in the field with anybody. I'm relentless. You're gonna have to bring your A game if you're gonna knock me down a peg, and it's probably not gonna happen. That's just how I'm wired. Been that way my whole life. But this book right here, Good to Great, I probably got into it a little late. I'm right in the middle of this. This is fantastic. I'm reading this book, and maybe we'll do another podcast where I can talk about our SaaS software side of things, which I think will absolutely revolutionize contractors Real-time 360 is going to help contractors take control of the brand and take it away from the digital marketing company, control all their assets, all their data, everything, kind of flip the switch or flip the script on shady or unscrupulous marketing companies. That's one thing here that I'll hit real quick. Contractors, whether you're a truck in a truck or you're a $10 million company, and there are some good marketing companies. My friends are probably going to hear this and I love them. There's some great companies out there, but they all aren't. And you've heard nightmare story after nightmare story. I'm trying to protect the contractor, bolt on real-time 360. You control everything. You own everything. Now, if you want to leave your digital marketing company, all you have to do now is invite other digital marketing companies into your software as viewer only access. Look at the latest executive report showing your rankings, your data, your traffic, your all this stuff. Now they have to give you a customized proposal based on where you currently reside. The days of starting over from scratch are over. So this book was great in helping me to change my mindset to understand what we built and how I can manage my company. We're at 140 employees now. How can I manage my company, empower my people that they take my message and they represent the product really well when we're going to try to empower contractors to take control of their data, of their content, and flip the script on marketing companies.
Fantastic. That's great, Matt. And I know for a fact that like I said, I'm working. Do you work in Australia? Do you go to us? Will you work with contractors down there? And do
Yeah,
you?
yes, we do.
Okay.
And absolutely. I have some Trenchless guys I've done assets for and built some stuff for them down there 100%. Yep.
All right. Well, I know there's a few guys that are unhappy. A few of my clients are unhappy with their current providers, so I'm going to make sure they get your contacts. What's the best way for anyone to get a hold of Matt Benton at Real Time Marketing for any other questions they might have?
Yeah, I mean, you can email me if you want, and that's all fine and good, and the easiest email that would be to remember would be Matt at Nodig, Nodig. It's just small and easy to remember, Matt at nodig.com. Or, I put my money where my mouth is, my cell phone, 928-525-4059. I'm that CEO who takes call after call after call after call to try to help my contractors out. My phone never stops. It is powered off right now because it'd be driving us crazy.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you, Matt. That's been very informative, and I always say this most episodes, even if no one listens, and that's not quite. And we do have quite a few followers now. I always get a lot of value from the people that I get to interact with, like you. And yeah, thank you again, Matt. And so that's a wrap for Pipeline to Profitability. Thank you, Matt,
Thank you.
and look forward to. Seeing how this goes when we go out, and I know we're going to be able to make your phone rings a little bit more, right?
Let's do this again. This is a treat.